My family said they couldn't afford a gift for me but threw a surprise party for my sister the same week. I didn't say a word. Until I posted a photo holding the deed to my own property. Their rage-filled messages haven't stopped since. I'm Sarah, 26 years old, and I've always been the practical daughter in my family. While my younger sister Emma, 22, was pursuing her dreams of becoming an influencer and living off our parents' generosity, I was working 2 jobs through college, paying my own way, and building a career in software development. Don't get me wrong, I love Emma, but our parents have always treated us very differently. Emma has always been the golden child. She's bubbly, outgoing, and has this way of making our parents feel like they're the most important people in the world. Me? I'm more reserved, analytical, and I've never been great at the whole emotional manipulation thing that seems to come so naturally to her. As a result, Emma gets the emotional support, the financial help, and the constant validation, while I get told I'm so strong and don't need help like Emma does. This dynamic has been going on for years, but I thought I'd made peace with it. I moved out at 20, bought my own car, paid off my student loans early, and built a successful career. I figured if I couldn't get their emotional support, at least I could prove I didn't need their financial support either. But then my 26th birthday rolled around 2 months ago, and everything changed. I don't usually make a big deal about my birthday. I'm not the type to throw parties or demand attention. But this year felt different. I'd just gotten a promotion at work, I'd been seeing someone I really liked, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like celebrating. So I mentioned to my mom a few weeks beforehand that I was thinking of having a small dinner party and asked if they wanted to come. Of course, honey, she said. We wouldn't miss it. The week leading up to my birthday, I started getting excited. I booked a nice restaurant, invited a few close friends, and even bought a new dress. I called my mom 2 days before to confirm the details. Oh, sweetie, she said, and I could hear the guilt in her voice immediately. I'm so sorry, but we can't make it. Money's just really tight right now, and we can't afford to eat out. You know how it is. I felt that familiar sting of disappointment, but I tried to be understanding. That's okay, Mom. We could do something at home instead? I could cook? No, you go have fun with your friends. We'll celebrate with you another time, okay? Maybe next weekend when things settle down. I was hurt, but I accepted it. This wasn't the first time my parents had chosen saving money over spending time with me. I had a lovely dinner with my friends, and while I missed having my family there, I tried not to dwell on it. But then, 3 days later, I saw the Instagram post. Emma had posted a series of photos from what was clearly an elaborate surprise party. There were dozens of people, professional decorations, a DJ, catered food, and a cake that must have cost more than my entire birthday dinner. The caption read, "Surprise. My amazing parents threw me the most incredible party for landing my first brand sponsorship. I can't believe they kept this secret for 2 weeks. Best family ever. #blessed, #surprise party, #family love." I stared at my phone in disbelief. 2 weeks. They'd been planning this party for 2 weeks, right around the time I'd asked them to come to my birthday dinner. The party where they couldn't afford to spend money. I scrolled through Emma's posts and saw more details. The party was at an event hall they'd rented. There were personalized napkins, a photo booth, hired servers, and what looked like an open bar. My mom was in several photos, beaming with pride as she talked to guests about how proud she was of Emma's first real success. The sponsorship Emma was celebrating? It was for a teeth whitening product. She was getting paid $500 to post about toothpaste. I sat in my car outside my office building and cried. Not because I wanted a party like that, but because of what it represented. They'd lied to me. They'd chosen to spend what must have been thousands of dollars celebrating Emma's $500 sponsorship deal while telling me they couldn't afford a birthday dinner. That night, I called my mom. "Did you see Emma's party?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Oh yes. Wasn't it wonderful? We wanted to surprise her. She's been working so hard on her social media, and this sponsorship was such a big deal for her." "I thought you said money was tight right now." There was a pause. "Well, yes, but this was special. Emma needed this, Sarah. She's been so stressed about building her career, and we wanted to show her we believe in her." "And my birthday wasn't special?" "Oh honey, that's different. You're so successful already. You don't need us to validate you like Emma does. You're strong enough to celebrate on your own." I hung up without saying goodbye. That conversation played in my head for days. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not just about the party, but about years of being treated like I didn't matter as much because I was strong enough to handle being ignored. But I didn't confront them. I didn't start a fight or demand an apology. Instead, I did something else. You see, there was something my family didn't know about my financial situation. Yes, they knew I had a good job and was responsible with money, but they had no idea how good I actually was with money, or how much I'd managed to save and invest over the years. While Emma was spending her early 20s posting selfies and asking our parents for rent money, I was maxing out my 401k, investing in index funds, and saving every penny I could. While she was buying designer handbags with money from our parents, I was learning about real estate and watching the market. 2 years earlier, I'd inherited $80,000 from my grandmother, money that my parents either forgot about or assumed I'd spent frivolously. Instead, I'd invested most of it and used some as a down payment on a small rental property in an up-and-coming neighborhood. It was a duplex that needed some work, but the bones were good and the price was right. Combined with my savings and the rental income, I'd been building wealth steadily. But that's not the property I'm talking about. 3 weeks after Emma's party, I closed on something much bigger. A beautiful Victorian house on 3 acres just outside the city. It needed work, but it was gorgeous, with original hardwood floors, a wraparound porch, and enough land for the vegetable garden I'd always dreamed of. When it came on the market through a private sale, I was ready. I paid cash. My parents had no idea I had that kind of money. To them, I was just their practical daughter with a decent job. They had no clue that my decent job in tech paid well into 6 figures, that I'd inherited money from Grandma Rose, or that I'd been living well below my means and investing the difference for years. The day I got the keys, I drove out to the property and spent the afternoon walking through my new home. It was surreal. At 26, I owned 2 properties, had a healthy investment portfolio, and no debt. I'd built the life I wanted without any help from anyone. I was sitting on the front porch of my new house, watching the sunset and feeling proud of what I'd accomplished, when I decided to take a photo. Not for social media attention, but as a personal milestone. I held up the deed with the house visible in the background and took a selfie. On impulse, I posted it to Instagram with a simple caption, "Sometimes the best gifts are the ones you give yourself." New house, new chapter. Grateful for all the hard work that made this possible. I didn't tag my family. I didn't mention the birthday situation. I just shared my happiness. But Emma saw it, and within an hour, my phone was blowing up. The first call was from my mom. "Sarah, what is this about a house? What do you mean you bought a house?" "I bought a house, Mom. Just like the post says." "But how? How did you afford this? This looks expensive." "I saved up for it." "Saved up? Sarah, houses cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't just save up for a house." "Actually, Mom, you can. If you live below your means and invest wisely for several years, you can save up enough to buy a house with cash." There was silence on the other end. "With cash? You bought this house with cash?" "Yes." "How much cash do you have, Sarah?" "Enough, apparently." That's when she got angry. "Why didn't you tell us you had this kind of money? Do you have any idea how much your father and I have struggled? Do you know how hard it's been to support Emma while she gets her career off the ground? And you've been sitting on all this money?" "I've been saving my own money that I earned at my job, Mom. Money that I didn't ask you for help earning. But we're family. If you had this much money, you should have helped Emma. You should have helped us. Like you helped me on my birthday?" Another silence. "That's completely different, Sarah." "How?" "Because Emma needed our support. She's trying to build something. You're already successful." "I built my success myself, Mom. Emma is 24 years old and still asking you for rent money while posting about designer purses on Instagram. Maybe what she needs is more financial support." I hung up. But the calls didn't stop. Next was my dad, then Emma, then my mom again. Then my aunt, Emma's godmother, who apparently got dragged into it. The messages started coming through text, Instagram DMs, Facebook Messenger, even LinkedIn. The gist of all of them was the same: I was selfish for not sharing my wealth with family, I was wrong to hide my financial situation, and I owed it to them to help Emma since I clearly didn't need the money. Emma's messages were the worst. She went from congratulatory, "OMG sis, I had no idea you were doing so well," to demanding, "I can't believe you let Mom and Dad stress about money when you could have helped," to just plain nasty, "You're a selfish bitch and I hope you're happy living alone in your big empty house." But the message that really got to me was from my mom. "Sarah, I don't understand how you became so cold. We raised you better than this. Family helps family, and the fact that you've been hoarding money while watching your sister struggle is just cruel. Your father and I are disgusted by your selfishness. If you don't make this right, don't expect to be welcome at family gatherings anymore." That's when I decided to respond. Not to the individual messages, but publicly. I made a Facebook post that I knew they'd all see. "I've been getting a lot of messages lately about my recent house purchase, so I want to clear some things up. Yes, I bought a house. I saved for years to make this purchase, living modestly and investing wisely. I'm proud of this accomplishment because I worked hard for it. Some people seem to think I owe explanations or apologies for my financial choices. I don't. I've never asked my family for money, and I don't owe anyone access to mine. I built my wealth through my own work and careful planning. It's interesting that some of the same people who told me they couldn't afford to celebrate my birthday are now upset that I didn't share money they didn't know I had. It's also interesting that supporting a family member's success is apparently selfish, but demanding access to that success is not. I love my family, but I won't be guilted for being financially responsible, and I won't apologize for achieving my goals independently. If that makes me selfish in your eyes, I can live with that. The responses were intense. Emma commented, "Wow, Sarah, way to air family business on social media. Really mature." My mom commented, "I'm heartbroken that my daughter would speak about her family this way publicly. We love you and only want what's best for everyone." But I also got a lot of supportive comments from friends and even some extended family members. My cousin Lisa wrote, "Good for you, Sarah. I've watched you work your ass off for years while certain other people got handouts. You don't owe anyone anything." My college roommate wrote, "I remember you eating ramen every night so you could save money while other people were partying on their parents' dime. You earned every bit of this success." The family drama escalated from there. My parents tried to get other relatives involved, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family in their time of need. Some bought it, but others started asking questions about exactly what kind of need my parents were in if they could afford elaborate surprise parties. Emma posted her own response, a long Instagram story about how success changes people and how sad it was when family members forget where they came from. She didn't mention that where I came from was paying my own way through everything while she lived rent-free in our parents' basement until she was 23. The breaking point came when my mom called my boss. Apparently, she'd looked up my company online and called the main number, asking to speak to me. When they told her I was in a meeting, she told the receptionist that there was a family emergency and that she needed to speak to me immediately about a financial matter. My boss came to find me, worried that something terrible had happened. When I called my mom back, she launched into another tirade about how I needed to do the right thing and help Emma, and how she'd called my work because I wasn't answering her calls. I was mortified. I had to explain to my boss that there was no emergency, just family drama, and that my mother had lied to get through to me. Fortunately, my boss was understanding, but I was furious. That night, I blocked all of them on everything. Phone, social media, email, everything. I was done. But they weren't done with me. They started having other people contact me. Family friends, distant relatives, even Emma's boyfriend reached out to tell me I was tearing the family apart and needed to be the bigger person. The worst was when my friend Rachel called me in tears. Apparently, my mom had contacted her and told her I was having some kind of breakdown and had cut off all contact with family. She asked Rachel to do a wellness check on me because she was worried about my mental state. When Rachel showed up at my apartment in tears, afraid I was suicidal or something, I realized how far my mother was willing to go to manipulate the situation. That's when I decided to go nuclear. I'd been keeping screenshots of all the messages, just in case. I had Emma calling me a selfish bitch, my mom threatening to cut me off from family events, my dad telling me I was no daughter of his if I didn't help Emma, and dozens of other messages from various family members telling me what a terrible person I was. The breaking point wasn't just my mom's manipulation with Rachel. It was when I realized they were systematically turning people against me with half-truths and outright lies. My Uncle Mark called me that same evening, saying he was disappointed in how I was treating family and that I should remember where I came from. When I asked what he'd been told, it became clear my parents had painted me as some kind of greedy monster who'd abandoned my struggling sister out of spite. They weren't just harassing me anymore, they were actively trying to destroy my relationships with extended family and friends. The woman who had supposedly raised me to be honest and kind was lying to people I cared about, making me out to be someone I wasn't. It felt like a betrayal that went deeper than just the birthday situation or even the years of favoritism. I also had photos from Emma's Instagram showing off the expensive party my parents threw her right after telling me they couldn't afford my birthday dinner. I made a second Facebook post, and this time I included receipts. Since my family has decided to involve mutual friends and extended family in our dispute, I want to share the full story so everyone has the context they need to make their own judgments. 3 weeks ago, my parents told me they couldn't afford to attend my birthday dinner because money was tight. That same week, they threw my sister an expensive surprise party to celebrate her $500 sponsorship deal. When I bought a house with money I'd saved independently, I was called selfish for not sharing wealth they didn't know I had. I'm sharing screenshots below so everyone can see exactly what's been said to me and judge for themselves whether my response has been unreasonable. And then I posted everything. Every nasty message, every guilt trip, every attempt at manipulation. I didn't edit anything or take anything out of context. I just let their own words speak for themselves. The response was swift and decisive. Extended family members who had been pressuring me to apologize suddenly understood why I'd cut contact. Family friends who thought I was being dramatic saw the level of harassment I'd been dealing with. My Aunt Karen, my mom's sister, commented, "I had no idea this was what was really happening. Sarah, I'm so sorry. No one should have to deal with this kind of treatment from family." My grandfather, who rarely uses Facebook, wrote, "Sarah has always been a good girl who worked hard and never asked for anything. I'm proud of her for standing up for herself." But the best response came from my current manager, who wrote, "Sarah is one of the most generous people I know. She organized collections for coworkers in need, stayed late to help struggling team members, and donated more to our charity drives than people making twice her salary. Anyone calling her selfish doesn't know her at all." The tide of public opinion shifted completely. People started sharing their own stories of family members who expected them to subsidize irresponsible relatives, or who were treated differently than their siblings. My parents and Emma, faced with the public embarrassment of their own words being displayed for everyone to see, finally went quiet. But the damage was done. It's been 2 months since I posted those screenshots, and I haven't heard from any of them since. Part of me feels relieved, the constant harassment has stopped, and I can finally enjoy my new house in peace. I've been spending weekends working in the garden, fixing up the interior, and honestly, it's been therapeutic. But part of me is sad too. I never wanted to cut my family off completely. I just wanted them to treat me with the same respect and consideration they showed Emma. I wanted them to acknowledge that lying to me about their finances while spending lavishly on my sister was hurtful. I wanted them to understand that I don't owe anyone access to money I worked hard to save. Instead, they doubled down on the idea that I was selfish and cruel, and tried to turn everyone against me when I wouldn't comply with their demands. I've been thinking a lot about family dynamics and expectations. My parents raised Emma to believe she deserved financial support and constant validation, while they raised me to believe I should be grateful for being ignored because it meant I was strong. When I finally achieved success on my own terms, they saw it not as something to celebrate, but as a resource they were entitled to. The irony is that if they had simply acknowledged what they did wrong, if they had apologized for lying about not being able to afford my birthday dinner, or admitted that they'd hurt my feelings, I probably would have eventually helped Emma in some way. Not because I owed it to her, but because despite everything, I do love her. I'm not heartless. When Emma was going through her breakup with her college boyfriend 2 years ago, I was the one who drove 3 hours to pick her up and let her cry on my couch for a week. When she needed a reference for her apartment application, I vouched for her character even though I knew our parents were co-signing anyway. I've always been there for my family when it mattered, just quietly and without expecting praise. But their response to being called out was to attack me, try to manipulate mutual connections, and even interfere with my job. They burned the bridge, not me. I've started going to therapy to work through some of these family issues, and my therapist has helped me understand that this pattern probably would have continued indefinitely if I hadn't put a stop to it. Every time I succeeded at something, there would have been expectations that I should share it with Emma. Every time Emma needed money, I would have been the selfish sister who could afford to help but chose not to. The house has been a good distraction. It's a lot of work, but it's exactly the kind of project I love. I've been learning to do tile work, and I'm planning to put in a new kitchen next month. I have a contractor coming to look at adding a home office space above the garage. What my family still doesn't understand is how deeply their favoritism affected me growing up. It wasn't just about money, though that was certainly part of it. It was about being made to feel like my accomplishments didn't matter as much as Emma's basic attempts at responsibility. When I graduated college summa cum laude while working 2 jobs, my parents took me out to Applebee's. When Emma finally moved out of their basement at 23, they threw her an independence party and got her a car. When I got my first job in tech, they said "That's nice, honey," and went back to discussing Emma's latest boyfriend drama. When Emma got 1,000 followers on Instagram, they bragged about it to everyone they met. I started keeping a mental scorecard without even realizing it. Every family dinner where Emma's minor achievements were celebrated while my major ones were glossed over. Every holiday where I brought thoughtful, expensive gifts while Emma showed up empty-handed and was praised for just being there. Every time I was told I was so independent in a tone that made it clear this was both a compliment and an excuse to ignore me. The worst part was how they'd justify it. "Emma needs more support," they'd say. "You're naturally self-sufficient." As if being responsible was a character flaw that disqualified me from love and attention. I remember when I was 23 and finally paid off my student loans, something I was incredibly proud of since I'd done it 3 years early through careful budgeting and extra payments. I called my mom to share the good news. "That's wonderful, Sarah," she said, but I could hear her distraction. "Hey, did you see Emma's post about her new apartment? We helped her pick out furniture. She has such good taste. Emma's new apartment that they were paying half the rent for, furnished with money they'd given her for getting settled. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor because I'd put every extra penny toward those loan payments. But I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was building character, building independence, building a better future. I told myself that their approval wasn't important as long as I was successful. The birthday situation shattered that illusion completely. It wasn't just that they'd lied about not being able to afford dinner. It was the casualness of it, the way my mom had dismissed my disappointment and redirected the conversation to Emma's party planning. It was the realization that they'd been actively planning Emma's celebration while telling me they couldn't celebrate mine. But what really broke my heart was scrolling through those party photos and seeing how genuinely happy my parents looked. In every picture, they were beaming with pride, hugging Emma, laughing with her friends. When was the last time they'd looked at me that way? When was the last time they'd seemed genuinely excited about something I'd done? I found myself zooming in on my mom's face in one particular photo where she's holding Emma and looking at the camera with this expression of pure joy. The caption Emma had written said, "Mom crying happy tears because she's so proud of me." I tried to remember the last time my mom had cried happy tears over something I'd accomplished. College graduation? No, she'd been worried about whether Emma would be okay moving back home. My first promotion? No, she'd been distracted by Emma's latest crisis. Paying off my loans? Buying my first car? Moving to my nice apartment? Nothing. There was nothing. That's when I realized that no amount of success would ever be enough to earn the kind of love and pride they gave Emma freely. I could cure cancer and they'd probably worry about how it might make Emma feel bad about herself. The decision to buy the house wasn't really about proving anything to them, though I won't lie and say that wasn't part of it. It was about proving something to myself. That I could build something beautiful and meaningful without their help, without their approval, without their participation at all. I spent weeks looking at properties, and when I walked into that Victorian house, I knew it was the one. It needed work, but I could see the potential. The realtor kept talking about what a great investment it would be, how property values in the area were rising, but that wasn't why I wanted it. I wanted it because it was mine. Because I'd earned it. Because every dollar of the down payment represented a choice I'd made to save instead of spend, to work late instead of party, to live below my means instead of asking my parents for help. The closing was on a Thursday morning. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, signing paper after paper, and feeling this incredible sense of accomplishment. The seller was an elderly woman whose husband had passed away, and she kept telling me how happy she was that someone young was going to love the house the way they had. "It needs someone who appreciates its character," she said, handing me the keys. "Someone who'll take care of it properly." I drove straight to the house after closing and just sat in my car for 20 minutes, looking at it. My house. My property. My achievement that had nothing to do with anyone else's opinion of me. That's when I took the photo with the deed. Not because I planned to post it, but because I wanted to capture that moment of pure, untainted pride. For once in my life, I had accomplished something that couldn't be diminished by comparison to Emma, that couldn't be overshadowed by someone else's drama, that couldn't be dismissed as not needing support. When I posted it, I genuinely thought my family would be happy for me. Maybe not as enthusiastic as they'd been about Emma's party, but at least proud that I'd achieved something significant. I was so naive. The phone calls started within hours, but it wasn't congratulations. It wasn't pride. It was suspicion, then accusation, then demand. How had I hidden this from them? Why hadn't I asked for their input? What was I planning to do with all this money I'd been hoarding? My dad's call was particularly hurtful. "Sarah, I don't understand why you'd make such a big financial decision without talking to your family first. What if something goes wrong? What if you can't afford the maintenance? You should have discussed this with us." The irony was breathtaking. This was the same man who'd never once asked for my input on any of the financial support they'd given Emma. They co-signed her car loan, paid her security deposits, covered her credit card debt, all without a word to me about whether these were wise decisions or good uses of their money. But when I made a smart investment with my own money that I'd saved myself, suddenly I needed their approval and oversight. Emma's reaction was the most telling, though. Her first message was excited, "OMG Sarah, this is amazing. I can't believe you bought a house." But within hours, as the reality sank in that I had significantly more money than any of them had realized, the tone changed completely. "I just think it's weird that you never mentioned you were house hunting," she texted. "Like, we talk sometimes and you never said anything about having this much money saved up. It feels kind of secretive." Secretive. Because I hadn't announced my financial business to people who'd never shown genuine interest in my life unless they needed something from me. The messages kept coming, each one more entitled than the last. "I'm really struggling with my rent right now and I had no idea you could help. I feel like you've been watching me stress about money when you could have made it all go away." As if her rent was my responsibility. as if my financial success was somehow taking money out of her pocket. But my mom's reaction was the worst because it was the most honest. Once the fake pride wore off, what remained was resentment. Pure, undiluted resentment that I had achieved something significant without needing her, without asking her permission, without making her feel important in the process. "I feel like I don't even know you anymore," she said during one of our later conversations. The Sarah I raised would never flaunt her success like this while her family struggles. Flaunt. I'd posted one photo celebrating the biggest achievement of my life, and she called it flaunting. Emma posted daily photos of designer purchases funded by their money, but that wasn't flaunting. That was just Emma being Emma. That's when I understood that this was never going to get better. The problem wasn't that they didn't know about my success, the problem was that my success disrupted the family narrative where I was the self-sufficient daughter who didn't need attention, and Emma was the delicate flower who needed constant support. My independence had been convenient for them when it meant they could ignore me guilt-free. But my success threatened the system they'd built, where Emma's needs always came first because I supposedly didn't have any. It's funny, my parents always said I didn't need their validation because I was strong enough without it. They were right, just not in the way they meant. I'm strong enough to build a life I love without their approval. I'm strong enough to walk away when people treat me poorly, even if they're family. I'm strong enough to buy my own house, throw my own parties, and celebrate my own successes. A few friends have asked if I think my family will ever reach out to apologize. Honestly, I doubt it. That would require them to admit they were wrong, and nothing in their behavior suggests they're capable of that kind of self-reflection. Emma would have to acknowledge that she's been living off our parents while I paid my own way, and my parents would have to admit that they've treated their daughters with blatant favoritism for years. But I'm okay with that. I'm not waiting around for apologies that aren't coming. I'm building the life I want, with or without their approval. And you know what? It's a pretty great life. I have a job I love, a beautiful house, financial security, and friends who actually celebrate my successes instead of resenting them. I have a garden that's going to be amazing next spring, and I'm thinking about getting a dog. The deed to my house is framed on my office wall now, not as a screw you to my family, but as a reminder of what I can accomplish when I put my mind to it. Every time I look at it, I remember that I don't need anyone's permission to succeed, and I don't need anyone's approval to be proud of what I've built. Sometimes the best gift really is the one you give yourself. Update: it's been 4 months since I originally posted this, and I wanted to give you all an update since so many people have been asking. First, the good news: I got the house exactly how I wanted it. The kitchen renovation is finished and it turned out beautifully. I did end up getting a dog, a rescue golden retriever named Charlie who absolutely loves having all this space to run around. The garden is planted and ready for spring. This place truly feels like home now. As for my family, there's been radio silence until last week. Apparently, Emma's influencer career hit a snag when several brands dropped her after her engagement rates plummeted. It turns out that buying followers doesn't actually translate to real influence, and companies are getting smarter about spotting fake metrics. She reached out through a mutual friend asking if we could talk things through and if I might be able to help her get back on her feet. The mutual friend said Emma was really struggling and that maybe this could be a chance for us to reconcile. I declined. Not out of spite, but because nothing about the approach suggested Emma had learned anything from this experience. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd said to me, no recognition that her struggle was the result of building a career on fake metrics rather than real value. Just another ask for money when things got tough. My parents haven't reached out at all, but I heard through my cousin that they're telling people I abandoned Emma in her time of need, which honestly just confirms that I made the right choice. I'm happier than I've been in years. Cutting toxic people out of your life is hard when they're family, but sometimes it's the healthiest thing you can do. To everyone who shared their own stories in the comments, thank you. It helped me realize I wasn't alone in dealing with this kind of family dynamic. And to those who said I was too harsh, I respect your opinion, but I stand by my choices. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, support, and love. When those things are missing, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away. I'm finally living life on my own terms, and it feels incredible.